Week 12 studs and duds. The Monday night game is still on, so I don't have stats for those yet. Let's talk about the players that drove you to victory and caused your defeats. Geoffrey, let's get it started. Wide receiver studs. Jackson Smith-Njigba is unbelievable. Another game on top of the wide receiver standings. 8 receptions for 167 yards, and 2 of them things. Them things is touchdowns. 2 of them things. The man has been unbelievable. He got you 37 fantasy points. I honestly can't believe he's doing as well as he is. It's only week 12 and he has 1,300 yards. He's had 100 or more yards in 6 of his last 7 games. And the one game he didn't have 100 yards, he had 93 and a touchdown. I thought he would be good when I traded for him, but I didn't think he'd be this good. Nice. Wan'Dale Robinson popped off this week. In his best game of the season, 9 receptions for 156 yards and a touchdown. I'm loving the targets. He had 14 targets, and that's not an outlier. He's had 9 or more targets for a month straight. The kid's cooking. Keep firing him up, especially as long as famous Jameis is going to be throwing him the ball. This man's been balling, but we'll talk about him in a minute. Amon-Ra St. Brown did work this week. 9 receptions for 149 yards and a touchdown, and they needed every bit of that because the New York Giants took them to overtime. He got you almost 30 fantasy points, and surprisingly, he wasn't the highest scorer on his team, but we'll get into that later too. We call that a tease in the biz. Moving on. George Pickens has been absolutely unbelievable this year. He's had back-to-back games with almost 30 fantasy points. 29.4, 29.6. And yeah, the first time was against the Raiders. We know that was easy. But he did this against the Philadelphia Eagles. This man here playing with y'all. Somebody is earning a lot of money. Hell of a way to perform during a contract year. Pay this man. AJ Brown was fantastic this week. 8 for 110 and a touchdown. Honestly, he should have had 2, but he didn't get his feet down. I know you want to score, AJ, but you got to get 2 feet down first, my boy. You had it. It wasn't even hard. But not complaining. 8 receptions, 110 and a touchdown. Ain't nothing to complain about. Other than the fact that y'all lost that game being up 21-0. That's so embarrassing. And you know what, AJ Brown? You are right. Your offense has a problem. How y'all scored no points in the second half against the Dallas Cowboys? Maybe that defense is turning it around a little bit. It was nice to see him perform in what I believe was an easy matchup, but I'd like him to be a little more consistent. He has had back-to-back games with 10 or more targets, though. Like to see that. Prefer to see it on a win, though. Rashee Rice came up clutch in a must-win game for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 8 receptions for 141 yards. Kid looked good out there. And when they needed a guy to go to, it was Rice. He did look like he came up with a bit of a hamstring, but I'm pretty sure he played after that. I got a notification on my sleeper app saying that he was questionable. We will be monitoring that. Please stay healthy, Rashee Rice. We need you. DJ Moore balled out this week. And by balled out, I mean he got 2 touchdowns. 5 for 64 and 2 touchdowns. Anytime you get 2 touchdowns, you're probably going to be on this list. Pittsburgh is a surprisingly good matchup for wide receivers. And he took advantage of that. Mazel tov. I'd like to see him make it more consistent because his last 2 games he scored 3 and 0. Very unfortunate. But hopefully he played him. He scored more touchdowns in this matchup than he has all season long. He scored 2 last week. His total for the year, 3. Wow. Devontae Adams had a fantastic bounce back week. He went 5 for 64 and 2 touchdowns. And unlike DJ Moore, these touchdowns are not an anomaly. He's already had 12 touchdowns this year. And I like the targets. He's had 8 or more targets in 6 of 7 games. This man is a consistent must start. Fire him up. Michael Wilson has been absolutely incredible since Marvin Harrison Jr. has been out. Back-to-back games with 10 or more receptions and over 115 yards. The man is balling out. Even when Marvin Harrison Jr. does get back, honestly, he might still be worth a flex play with wide receiver 2 upside. He's not going to be the number 1 target or even the number 2. That's reserved for Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. But I can definitely see a world where Michael Wilson has his weeks. If you got him off the waivers, he's looking like a real good ad this year. And shout out to Shamir DK. 5 receptions for 44 yards and a touchdown. Solid. Pretty sure it was that return that got him in this list. Moving on to the duds. Wide receiver duds. Emeka Egbuka had a terrible game this week. 3 receptions for 30 yards. Ugh. He only got 1/2 with Baker Mayfield, which is very unfortunate. And Teddy Bridgewater was trying to get him the ball, but honestly, that Rams defense was doing work. I am slightly concerned. He started off hot, but in the last 6 weeks, he's only been over 10 fantasy points once. Now, he's been close. He had 2 games with 9, but it took him a minute to get back from the hamstring injury. And now that he's back, Baker's banged up. At the end of the day, I think he's going to be fine. It's just been a little bumpy. And if Baker has to miss time, that bumpy ride's going to continue. Love the targets, though. 8 or more targets in 5 straight games. They try to get him the ball, and that's going to continue. We just got to have faith it's going to turn into production. As a Buccaneers fan, I am a slight bit biased. Get healthy, Baker. We need you. Jameson Williams had 0 fantasy points in a game where both teams combined for 60 real-life points. Very unfortunate. Amon-Ra St. Brown got his. And Jahmyr Gibbs ate all day. But Jameson Williams couldn't get no works. He had some opportunities, but they got called back. At the end of the day, 3 registered targets. Very unfortunate. It was a goose egg. Wow. If you started him, I'm sure you were hot. Look at all this scoring. Where are the points for my boy? But better luck next week. Yeah, that way. I don't think he gooses you again, but it's not the first time it's happened this year. Week 7 against the Bucks. Goose egg. 2 targets. Not a goose egg, but terrible. Week 5 against the Bengals. 1 reception for 9 yards. Sometimes he does this. Just not normally after 3 games straight of 16 or more points. He'll bounce back. Just wasn't his week. Jordan Addison was unbelievably disappointing this week. He got you a goose egg. Zip 0. Stingy with dinero. And the stranger thing, 1 target? He got you 1 target? Wow. To be fair, it wasn't like there was a bunch to go around. J.J. McCarthy was horrific. He threw for 87 yards. I'll get into J.J. McCarthy later in more detail, but it's scary hours out here for these Vikings. The Packers defense is good, but they ain't that good. They're not shut down wide receiver 2, basically shut down wide receiver 1. Good. Ugh. Better days are ahead, but that's not saying much when you're starting from 0. Romeo Doubs went 2 for 20 in a game they were clearly dominating. Stephon Diggs didn't get as much work as I thought he would in a game that was pretty back and forth with the Bengals. My man only got 3 targets and went 2 for 20. Meanwhile, you got Hunter Henry up here getting 10 targets for over 100 yards. Those were Diggs points. But to be fair, the Cincinnati Bengals are one of the worst teams in the league against the tight end position, so the Patriots probably did the right thing. I mean, they got the dub. Joshua Downs got 6 targets, but didn't really do anything with them. Went 2 for 10. Cooper Kupp was also pretty useless, 2 for 24. Jerry Jeudy, how do you catch the ball 1 time for 39 yards and fumble it up here dancing around? Boy, if you don't run hard and get them yards, out here looking like a fool. He only had 39 yards, but he could have had more. Hold on. And Godwin didn't really do much of anything in his first game back. 2 receptions for 9 yards. We're not starting him right now. Geoffrey, I feel like there were some top tier names that were missing on this list. Can you tell me the honorable mentions, please?
Yes, sir. Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Rome Odunze.
Justin Jefferson had a pretty disappointing week. 4 for 48. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely not what you've come to expect from Justin Jefferson. But I think we all know that it's not him. He clearly has a J.J. McCarthy problem. How productive can you be when your quarterback's only throwing for 87 yards? He's had 3 straight games with less than 12 PPR points, and 2 of them were less than 9. It's not over for Justin Jefferson. We just need J.J. McCarthy to start getting it together, start slinging some production. Now, to be fair, Green Bay Packers are a really good defense, so they were all over him. But he plays the Seattle Seahawks next week, and their defense is pretty good too. It gets a little easier after that, but rough sledding for my boy JJ. Didn't crush you, but it wasn't great. Nico Collins went 3 for 55. Not good, but he didn't crush you. Plus, he was coming off of back-to-back weeks with 20-plus points. Down week, but he'll bounce back. Rome Odunze is still the #1 wide receiver on this team. He just didn't get the touchdowns this week. I love the 9 targets. He turned that into 3 for 53, which is okay, but would have looked better with a touchdown. Still, love the targets. He has been pretty inconsistent though. Less than 10 points in 5 of his last 7 games, and that's not even really doing it justice. 6 or less points in 4 of his last 7 games. Ugh. Man's just not consistent right now. Too many mouths to feed. Moving on to the running back position. Running back studs. Jahmyr Gibbs was absolutely unbelievable this weekend. 264 total yards and 3 of them things. Them things is touchdowns. 3 of them things. Crazy work. Clearly running back 1 this week. He got you 55 points. What? He's had 36 or more points in 3 of the last 5 weeks. He is winning you weeks by himself. And they needed every yard of it because the New York Giants took them into overtime at home off a loss. Y'all were 10-point favorites and y'all went into overtime. And these weren't dink and dunk plays. Man was hitting home runs, plural. He had a 69-yard touchdown. What? Unbelievable. If you had him this week, congrats on the dub. Christian McCaffrey is unbelievable. The game is still on, but we just got into the 4th quarter, and he has 27 points. I think he needs to be in this video. He currently has over 150 total yards and a touchdown. I'm sure that's only going up from here. There are 13 minutes left. He's only had 2 games all year, less than 20 fantasy points. What? He's got 27 right now. Not including this week, 3 of his last 5 games, he's had over 30 points. Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, is always going to be in the conversation for best running back in the league. The man is crushing it. And as I always say, please stay healthy, Christian McCaffrey. We need you. With Josh Jacobs out, Emmanuel Wilson did work. 125 total yards and 2 of them things. Them things is touchdowns. 2 of them things. He's an amazing substitute when Josh Jacobs is out. It sounds like Jacobs has a chance to play, but you're going to want to monitor that because if he doesn't play, Wilson can get it done. Ashton Jeanty produced for fantasy football managers, and luckily that's what we care about. I mean, he did get over 100 yards and a touchdown, but it's hard to run on that Browns defense. He ran for 2.9 yards a carry. Ugh. But he went 8 for 58. And a touchdown in the air. Love to see him getting involved in the receiving game. And PPR, that goes a long way. 8 for 8 is a lot. He did get banged up, so we're going to want to monitor that. But if he can stay healthy, he's been solid. 15 or more points in 3 of the last 4 games. It's pretty good. But that schedule? No bueno. Man, that's actually really bad now to look at it. They get the Chargers, Broncos, Eagles, in Philadelphia. Texans, who are surprisingly good. And they end off with the Giants in the fantasy championship, unless you're one of those people that play in week 18, which you shouldn't. You should stop at 17. But if you play till 18, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who will most likely need that game. That's not a great sign. Derrick Henry is starting to cook. Back-to-back games with 20 or more points. Back-to-back games with a touchdown or more. Love to see it. He had over 80 total yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what I'm talking about. And next week they get the Cincinnati Bengals? Yeah, the King should eat. Welcome back, King. James Cook balled out in a game against a great defense. Went for over 100 yards and a touchdown. He's had back-to-back games with 20 or more fantasy points. Dare I say, Cook has been cooking? Knee slapper. Geoffrey, give me the honorable mentions, please.
Travis Etienne Jr.,
Kareem Hunt, and Kenneth Gainwell. They all had 18 to 20 points. Moving on to the duds. Running back duds. Kyron Williams was very disappointing in a game that the Rams honestly dominated my Bucks. 12 carries for 46 yards, 3.8 yards a carry, ho-hum. It's extra disappointing because he's coming off of a game where he had 91 yards and a touchdown. He should be able to bounce back next week. They get the Carolina Panthers. He should be fine. DeAndre Swift was horrific. Did he get injured and I just not see it? He had 15 yards rushing and 14 yards receiving. What happened? Why did he only carry the ball 8 times? I mean, Kyle Manungai had more carries than him. 12-8. I gotta go back and dig into that a little more. And you fumbled? Did you get benched? That would make more sense. Fumbling. Just like Caleb Williams. Fumbling. Ramondre Stevenson was horrific in his first game back. He had 10 total yards, no touchdowns, 2 fantasy points. Oh my gosh. Awful. Got out-touched 18-6 by Travion Henderson. Travion managers must be very pleased. He might be a sit until we figure out what's going on with him. And if that's the case, Giants next week, then a bye, then Buffalo, then Baltimore. It's not looking good for him. I removed Alvin Kamara because he got banged up. No reason for him to be on this list. Jordan Mason was awful for fantasy this week. In real life, he was okay. 8 for 42, 5.3 yards a carry. He split work completely with Aaron Jones. Just didn't get any work in the passing game, and that team was, a complete and utter no-show. Can't really do much when your team scores 6 points. And Rashad White was like a vault, baby, locked down. He was behind Sean Tucker in carries, going up against a great Rams defense that stops the run very well. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Geoffrey, can you give me a quick once-over on the duds, please?
Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones.
And Woody Marks. None of these guys are a surprise except for one. Jonathan Taylor was like a vault, baby, locked down for the first time this year. He ran for 3.6 yards a carry. Clearly, the Kansas City Chiefs had a plan, and that plan was anybody but JT. He did run it 16 times, and I can't blame him. It worked. They basically just dared Daniel Jones to beat him. And they started off nice. 7 points in the first, 7 points in the second, 7 points in the first quarter, 7 points in the second quarter, 6 points in the third. But as that game waned on, 0 in the fourth, 0 in overtime. I'm not concerned about Jonathan Taylor long term. He's going to be just fine. Still one of, if not the best running back in the league. That being said, this next matchup, no bueno. Going up against the Texans. But he should be better than he was this week. Moving on to the quarterbacks. Quarterback studs. Jameis Winston popped off this week. He was incredible. He threw for 2 touchdowns. And he caught a 33-yard touchdown where he had to fight off a defender. A nice little spin move and get up in there. That was very, very impressive. You really got the full gambit with him. 2 touchdowns. Receiving touchdown. He did throw a pick. That's classic Jameis. I would know. I'm a Bucks fan. He was feeding them boys. They had the Lions on the rope. They almost won. They took them into overtime. Are you kidding me? Famous Jameis gets LASIK surgery, stops throwing picks. Wild. Jalen Hurts balled out for fantasy this week. Too bad it wasn't good enough to get him a dub. He threw for 289 yards, but he rushed for 33 and 2 touchdowns. He ended up with 3 of them things. Them things is touchdowns. 3 of them things. And that'll put you in the A+ category. Still can't believe he lost that game. Up 21-0. Wow. Maybe A.J. Brown was right. There's something wrong with that offense. They really should work on that. It's not like they don't have the players. But they lost to this guy. Dak Prescott came in clutch and got the dub. Unbelievable. He threw for over 350 yards and 2 of them things. Then he summoned his inner Jalen Hurts and ran for a touchdown. The man had over 360 total yards and 3 of them things. I honestly still cannot believe they won that game. Not even just didn't get blown out. They came back and won. What? When Dak threw that red zone pick, I was like, oof, this one could get ugly. But they kept their resolve. I gotta give them credit where credit is due. Can't believe it, but it was impressive. It does help when your defense holds the Philadelphia Eagles to 0 second half points. 0! The Cowboys just walked you down. That's embarrassing. Low key. Nah, actually high key. Embarrassing. Good job, Cowboys. I don't normally like to give y'all credit. That was impressive. Y'all were about to get embarrassed. And for the honorable mentions, we have Cam Ward, threw for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Stafford threw for like 270 and 3. They didn't really need much more of him because he was dominating pretty much the whole game. Moving on to the duds. Quarterback duds. Lamar Jackson was horrific this week for fantasy football. He threw for less than 270 yards, 0 touchdowns. This is back-to-back weeks where he hasn't had a touchdown. and he hasn't thrown for 200 in 3 weeks. I mean, heck, he's only run for more than 30 yards once out of the last 4 games. So you're not even getting the running aspect that we love. Now, the next 3 games are all divisional matchups, and 2 of them are against the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm hoping he bounced back because the Bengals suck. So he should be able to do some work. He is still Lamar Jackson, but the lack of running is concerning. He even looked like he wanted to go upfield and kind of hesitated. I'm curious if he's still not feeling 100%, because prior to the injury in week 5, he ran for, starting in week 1, 70 yards, 13, 35, 48, and then he got injured. And since then, once he got back, 12, 36, 10, and 11. And in these last 2 games, it wasn't like they were just blowing people out and he didn't need to do anything. They were down in the Cleveland game and they were down in the Jets game. These are bad teams. I kind of let it go with the Cleveland Browns because the Browns are an elite defense. So I kind of just chalked that up to them being great, to be honest with you. But the Jets aren't great. They're not some lockdown defense. They got rid of Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner, and they already weren't great. I am a bit concerned, but optimistic because of the matchups coming up. Now, if he lays an egg against Cincinnati, I will be asking some questions. Josh Allen was a complete dud this week. He went from scoring 40-plus fantasy points against my Bucks, but 10 points against the Houston Texans. Man, that defense is fierce. They were all over him. He threw for a decent amount of yards. 273. That's not bad. But he had 0 total touchdowns. None. You had no touchdowns? Wow. I mean, I get it though. They sacked him 8 times. They were all over this boy. And that led to 2 picks. Ugh. Hopefully you played against him and didn't play him. Because if you played against him, it definitely helped you get a dub. But if you played him, hopefully you also have Jahmyr Gibbs, because that would have balanced it out pretty well. Moving on. Jordan Love had a horrible game for fantasy, but in real life, they didn't really need him. They absolutely dominated the Vikings. It would have helped if the Minnesota Vikings were competitive at all. The Vikings had a field goal in the first and the second. After that, they shut them down at halftime. I think if Jordan Love needed to do more, they could have. But the 2 touchdowns they scored were run in. After that, it was just field goals. I mean, they had the whole game in their hands. Emmanuel Wilson did pretty well as well. He had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So touchdowns just were on the ground, not the air. He didn't make many mistakes. He didn't throw any picks. This is one of those bad for fantasy, fine for real life situations. It happens. This next guy wasn't on the list because he's below 50% rostered, but I had to add him on here to talk about him because this is bad. J.J. McCarthy was absolutely horrific this week. Just awful. He threw for 87 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Yeah, I know, the defense was all over him. He got sacked 5 times, but man, was that bad. He drug down everybody on the team. I mean, had to. How could it not when you only throw for 87 yards? Justin Jefferson, a perennial top 5 wide receiver, was a D this week. Got like 8 points. Jordan Addison had no fantasy points. TJ Hawkinson, terrible week. But that's what happens when you throw for 87 yards. JJ McCarthy. I'm going to be patient with JJ McCarthy before I call him a complete bust or anything. He's only played for 6 games. He was out all last year. He's already missed 5 games this season. He's currently in concussion protocol. I feel like last time he had an ankle injury, we found out after the game that he misses 5 weeks. This time he had a terrible game, now he has a concussion. I'm not willing to call him a bust yet, but this has been a bust of a season for the Vikings. I mean, in the last couple years, they let Kirk Cousins go. But you know what? Kirk Cousins was old and they wanted to bring in the future. Plus, he never got them over the hump. I get it. They let Daniel Jones go, but to be fair to them, Daniel Jones was terrible at the Giants. Even if he looked fine in practice, you wanted to see what the kid got. Okay. The one that I think really hurts is letting Sam Darnold walk out the door when you got 14 wins with him last year. That one I think hurts a little bit more. Mainly because at least he was showing that he had talent and that he could get it done. He just fell in big moments, which is a terrible trait to have. The de facto playoff game, the last week of the season, L, and then a bad L in the playoffs. So I would get Kevin O'Connell being like, I can make it work with any solid, accurate quarterback. We've seen him do it over and over again. J.J. McCarthy just isn't there yet. But this roster is ready for a push. This roster is ready to make a run. You have incredible offense that's being obviously held back by the quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're probably cooked for this year. And hopefully he just strings together a couple good games towards the end of the season, so it's promising. But I wouldn't be surprised if they brought somebody in next year. Maybe not like an early draft pick, but like a vet of some sort. I'm rooting for him because I have him in Dynasty. And it's been unfortunate. Moving on to the tight ends. Tight end studs. Hunter Henry balled out this week. That was pretty to be expected considering they were going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are absolutely horrific at guarding the tight end. If you're looking for a tight end, start the ones playing the Bengals. They really don't even guard it. Hunter Henry hasn't had more than 10 points in a week since week 4. So I wouldn't consider this something that is going to be repeated on a regular basis. But he definitely has this in him. He's proven that he can ball out in the right matchups. Trey McBride was good as usual. 9 receptions for 79 yards. Almost 17 points. You'll take that. Honorable mention goes out to Colston Loveland and Brenton Strange. They both had just under 15 fantasy points. Nice. Let's talk about the duds. TJ Hawkinson was absolutely terrible this week, but it was not really his fault. JJ McCarthy only threw for 87 yards. He went 4 for 19. Hawkinson had 4 receptions for 19 yards. That was almost 20% of the receiving yards all game. He goes as far as JJ McCarthy goes, and let's just say JJ needs some work. He got a couple things he needs to figure out. Dalton Schultz had a really disappointing game. 1.8 fantasy points is horrible. He had 1 reception for 8 yards. Prior to that, he had double-digit fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. I think he bounces back. This was just a pretty bad game for him. Kyle Pitts went 2 for 25 this week. That was awful. It's not really helping you out. I was hoping he got more targets with Drake London out, but he had 5. He converted on 2 of them. Dallas Goedert went 2 for 20. Really not involved at all in this offense this week. Honestly, Dallas Goedert is touchdown dependent, so no touchdown wasn't very relevant. Speaking of touchdown dependent, Mark Andrews is a great example of a touchdown dependent tight end. When he doesn't get a touchdown, you're going to be pretty disappointed. The last 3 weeks, he got a touchdown. Hooray! This week, you didn't get one. Aww. Next week, he plays Cincinnati Bengals. They're the worst team against the tight end. Probably gets a touchdown. Also, I'm pretty sure he dropped a touchdown this week. Had one in his bread basket and dropped it. You gotta catch better, my boy. Y'all need to stay late for the jug machine. So that's gonna do it for this week's Studs and Duds. So who helped you win your week and who led you to defeat? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell down below. I'll see you next time, Bay Nation. Hopefully you got that dub. Playoffs are almost here. See you soon. Peace.